Hello. According to principle number 5, trade can make everyone better off. This is true and one of the most important concepts in economics. Right now, we're trying to understand how people interact with each other. In economics, we often assume that these interactions takes the form as trades between people, as if we were in a market. A person interacts with others, trades with others in order to make herself better off. This might be why people don't like economics. It does sound somewhat cold-hearted, as if the only reason we cooperate or interact with others or help others is because we want to get something in return, to make ourselves better off. But, perhaps sadly, it is probably a pretty realistic assumption when we deal with people outside of our immediate family. So, the question is, who should do what, and will we be better off? In this video, I want to look at a simple example. Of course, this is going to be a simplification of the real world, but what we're trying to do here is establish some basic principles for how people interact with each other and why it's a good thing to interact with others as opposed to do everything by yourself. We could do this in various examples. We could think of two friends working together to make each other better off, or two employees working together in a business, or we can think of two countries trading with each other. Let's think about two countries, USA and USB. To make things interesting, let's make USA better at everything. That is, USA can produce all goods using fewer units of labor than USB can. Suppose there are 3,600 units of labor in both the USA and the USB. This is the resource in this example. And to focus our thinking, we assume that the two countries have exactly the same amount of these resources, the same amount of labor. But the two countries are not identical. As I said before, USA is better at everything. USA can produce the two goods, machines and food, using fewer units of labor. This means that USA has better technology than USB. So, according to the technology in USA, it takes 3 units of labor to produce one machine, or it takes 0.6 units of labor to produce 1 unit of food. Whereas in the USB, it takes 3.6 units of labor to produce one machine and 1.2 units of labor to produce a unit of food. So, just to clarify, it takes 3 units of labor, say 3 workers, to produce a machine in USA, while in USB it takes 3.6 units of labor to produce the same exact machine. And similarly, USA can produce a unit of food using 0.6 units of labor, while USB needs 1.2 units of labor to produce the same amount of food. Clearly, USA is better at producing both machines and food. They can do both goods using fewer resources. This is what absolute advantage means. Hence, USA has an absolute advantage in both goods. Okay, given resources and technology, which country should produce machines and which country should produce food? Actually, we don't know. As David Ricardo explained in response to Adam Smith, trade does not depend on absolute advantage. It depends on comparative advantage. So in order to figure out who or which country should be doing what, we have to establish comparative advantage. And in order to find comparative advantage, we have to calculate each country's opportunity cost. Now, this is an important point. Even if we are the best or the worst at everything, trade is still good for us. And that's what we're going to try to show. We will show that even though USA is best at producing both machines and food, USA will benefit from trading with USB. And at the same time, even though USB is not as good as USA at producing machines or food, USB will benefit from trading with USA. All right, the first step is to find opportunity cost. In USA, it takes 3 units of labor to produce a machine. But these 3 units of labor could instead have been used to produce 3 divided by 0.6 equals 5 units of food. Hence, when USA decides to produce a machine, it forgoes the opportunity to produce 5 units of food. This is its opportunity cost for a machine. We could ask, what is the opportunity cost of a machine in USB? You can probably think about this one if you wanted to, but it takes 3.6 units of labor to produce a machine in USB, but those 3.6 units of labor could have produced 3 units of food. Hence, you give up 3 units of food to produce a machine in USB. That's the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost of food in USA and USB is just the inverse. That is, to produce 1 unit of food, USA would have to give up 1/5 units of machine, whereas USB would have to give up 1/3 of a machine to produce 1 unit of food. Okay, so now we know that the opportunity cost of food is lower in USA than in USB. 1/5 is less than 1/3. While the opportunity cost of a machine is lower in USB than in USA. 3 is less than 5. So we can conclude that USA has a comparative advantage in producing food, and USB has a comparative advantage in producing machines. Now what? Well, this establishes the pattern of trade. Who should be doing what? USA should produce food and then trade some food for machines made in USB. And USB will produce machines and trade some of those machines for food produced in USA. But we really need to convince ourselves that this is actually beneficial for both USA and USB. That is, does USA have an incentive to trade with USB? And does USB have an incentive to trade with USA? To answer that question, we need to determine the terms of trade. That is, if USA sends a unit of food to USB, how many machines will it get in return? And similarly, if USB trades the machines to USA, how many units of food will it get in return? The bad news is we don't know exactly. But the good news is we can determine a range of possible terms of trade. Let's think about it. In USA, to produce a machine by itself using the direct approach, we would have to give up 3 units of labor that could be used to produce 5 units of food. Hence, the true cost of a machine in the USA is 5 units of food. Clearly, USA would never buy a machine from USB for more than 5 units of food, say 6. If USB asks for 6 units of food for their machines, then USA is better off just making their own machines. They only have to give up 5 units of food to do that. Similarly, to produce a machine, USB gives up 3 units of food. Hence, USB will be happy to produce a machine for USA as long as they get more than 3 units of food in return. Or, if USA offered less than 3 units of food for the machine, USB would rather not produce the machine for them and rather produce their own food instead. Hence, the terms of trade has to be between 3 units of food for a machine, that's the USB limit, and 5 units of food for a machine, that's the USA limit. Can we think of a number between 3 and 5? Yeah. Let's pick 4. So let's assume that the terms of trade is 4 units of food per machine, or equivalently, 1/4 of a machine per unit of food. Now, if the terms of trade is 4 units of food per machine, does USA have an incentive to trade with USB? Yes. By trading with USB, USA can get a machine by giving up only 4 units of food, rather than the 5 units of food they would have to give up to produce the machine by itself. USA gains 1 unit of food. What about USB? USB can now get 4 units of food for every machine given up or traded to the USA, rather than the 3 units of food they get if they give up a machine and do the food and produce the food by themselves. USB also gains a unit of food. Both countries are better off from trade. If they produce and trade their comparative advantage good. That's a key learning outcome. Trade can make everyone better off. This is why I teach economics and trade for everything else. This is why I cook and my wife do dishes, even though I am a better cook and I'm better at doing the dishes than my wife is. But I'm comparatively better at cooking than doing the dishes. Note that when we think about cooking and doing the dishes, and my wife and I am USA, and cooking is food, while my wife is USB, and doing the dishes is machines. Can you see the connection? I hope so. By the way, that last example is not true, and I really hope my wife never sees this video.